It was also messed up through contracts. And I went through that 10 years ago. So it's a good and a bad thing. It was a bad thing at the time, where I got messed over in a contract with an independent music label. And I had to leave all my music behind for that album. And I cried. I lost my mind. I would go daily to Samro. I'll never forget Lynette. This lady Lynette, her and I became so close during that time. She felt like an auntie, our auntie Lynette. Cause like I'd go there daily and just cry and be like, it's for music, and they tried to help me. They tried to help.
Hello everyone, my name is Cyril, and today we are shooting our first podcast. We got our guest here with us, but I just want to brief you a little bit about what we want and what we want to achieve and what's our vision. We want to be one of the top podcasts in Durban, growing from Durban, other provinces in the country, Africa, internationally. So we're not playing small in this podcast. We got our top-notch guests that will be coming in and telling us who they are and where they're from and what has driven them to become who they are at whatever level that they are and what other visions do they have that we don't even know of. Okay, so our first guest today is Lexi. And Lexi, how are you doing today? She needs no introduction, everybody knows her, but I would like you guys to hear from her. How are you doing today, Lexi?
I'm good, thank you. So, I'm Lex Lafoy, and previously known as Lexicon. On my ID, I'm Ashley Lafoy, and yeah, that's me.
Okay. How was your day today, Lexi?
It's been a very busy day. I'm busy with a lot of admin. I'm preparing to submit a new single for distribution tomorrow for Africa Day, which is the 25th of May. I'm busy with some other applications. I'm working on a documentary as production coordinator. So it's been a busy day. I'm with you presently, but it's also like a lot of work to keep my mind focused at this time right now. I find there's a lot going on, which I'm really grateful for, but I've had a good morning.
Okay, that's nice to hear. I also got my colleague Spa, who will also be working with us in this podcast. Can you tell us more about yourself, Spa?
I was so this podcast is pretty much new. So we are trying to create the balance between the two worlds. That is why we have the beautiful and lovely Lexi here to tell us more about herself. I'm really excited to actually have you because you've been having so much of other interviews as well from the outside, and you've been interviewed and I was asking that her earlier on, how is it to be interviewed? She said it's cool. She has done this for several numbers of time,
So she can guide us where we need some assistance.
Because we need some
Give us
assistance
pointers.
as well.
We're in this together.
Yeah.
We do need some assistance.
Yeah. So earlier on you mentioned that you from Durban, Joburg, Durban North, Treasure Beach. Can you tell us who is Lex Lafoy?
Sure. So I'm a rapper, a writer, creative project manager, community development specialist, social science graduate, recently graduated from Business and Arts South Africa last year, their cultural producers program. I'm a mom. I'm also, I'm getting into film. It's been a long journey. I mean, I've featured, I've cameoed. I started off as a background actor, worked my way up to get into slightly bigger roles. I haven't achieved the roles that I want to achieve yet, like a lead per se. But I'm an all-round creative. I'm a humanist. I believe in the value of humanity, of human life. I'm a child of God. I'm just a cool, aligned, purpose-living human being.
It must be difficult though to gel all those things together.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a slight history on getting here. You know, as a child, I was an only child for 9 years before my mom got married and my brothers came along at home. And I believe that time I had on my own as an only child allowed me to do a lot of imagining and a lot of visualizing and a lot of playing, you know, around the ideas of the person that I've always wanted to be. So, like, for example, we saw Missy Elliott as the first female rapper to get into the Rock and Roll, Hall of Fame. I used to listen to a lot of Missy Elliott growing up. I used to do my own little routines there in the room. I used to record hip-hop songs on cassettes back in the day, record myself rapping, because back then hip-hop wasn't as mainstream as it is now. Now we take it for granted. Before we were like the stepchild, you know. It was like we were seen as on the side.
Just outsiders.
We were outside.
Yeah, just outsiders.
Yeah. So having, you know, those 9 years as a child to really exercise my imagination and build my own world, as my mother says. My mother often says I live in my own world. So
the life sometimes to build your own world where only you will understand how things has to be, rather than taking information and orders from other people who will lead you into their direction and not your direction.
Exactly. Because as human beings, we have our own gifts, we have our own vision, we have our own desires, we have our own talents. And sometimes that path is disturbed by too much external influence, you know. So as a creative especially, it's very important to make sure you have your own self-time. So yeah, I grew up as an only child till about 9. My siblings came along. That was a big shift for me. I was like, Mama, who are these people? I don't know them. You know? But eventually I learned to love my brothers. I get along very well with my brothers. You know, today they like my best friends. I really love them. One of the pieces of advice I've given them in the past, I heard one of them saying it the other day with a bit of sauce. I was like, hey, ingenile, you know? Because I said to them a couple of years ago, because, you know, there's this thing with our brown and our black boys, you know, where they often get into unnecessary violence, you know. So I remember telling my younger brothers, like, when they go out, don't rather look like a stupid and come home alive, you know, because you don't know who's carrying a gun, who's carrying a knife. You don't know what issues someone came to the party with, you know. So one of my brothers was like saying that to me. He's made a saying out of it. I'm like, hey, wasn't that the advice I gave you? He says, it sounds like something you'd say. So it's nice to know that went in, you know. I can see I've had a big influence on them. They're really dope human beings. Nasim, Safwan, Isham. I also have brothers on my dad's side and a sister on my dad's side. So I'm the firstborn, the only child between my mom and dad, and then there's like three younger brothers on my mother's side, and I think 6 siblings on my dad's side. So we're a big tribe, you know. And yeah, family has been super important to me growing up. When I finished my degree at UKZN, I went to Joburg, where I spent about 7 years just growing my network, developing my professional side, my brand. And then I came back the day before lockdown started. I remember I literally packed what I could pack. I left everything else in the apartments I was living in Maboneng, and I say, get on the bus, you know? And at that time, I didn't know how huge that move would be for me.
Yeah.
I mean, when they announced lockdown, they said it was going to be 21 days.
Yeah, for sure.
That ended up being
Straight.
almost 3 years,
Yeah.
you know?
Things haven't gone back to how they were before.
Yeah. So I thank God I listened to that inner voice when it said go home. Because I think I'd be dead. If not by depression or freezing cold of pneumonia in my fancy concrete open plan apartments in Maboneng, something would have happened, Jay, you know?
For sure.
But I'm glad, I'm so glad I came back home.
And you are safe as well and so. I'm sure it must be a difficult transaction for you to move from here and going to Johannesburg. Fast forward now, when you look at it and you like, maybe, and still, because building a brand, I'm sure you didn't look at it as in like building a brand back then. You know, you wanted to, because you're pushing this thing that was your passion and love. How it was for you?
You're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, as a young woman, as a young artist coming from Durban, where there's no established industry, I mean, we did it out of fun, out of passion, out of the love for it, you know. Then you get to Joburg and you find, hey, kunzima la.
It's not what they thought.
It definitely taught me the industry side, the business side, the all those very important elements, the branding side, the professionalism. I learned a lot of those very necessary elements. Also the international standards, because while in Joburg, I obviously met a lot of people from outside the country, from overseas. I'm still in communication with the co-founder of Lyricist Lounge. In fact, I'm about to publish an interview with him this week, Lyricist Lounge, that brought people the likes of Eminem blew up through there, Biggie was there, Rad Digger was there, Talib was there. So I've definitely made some lifelong connections being in the Johannesburg space. I still get work with people in Johannesburg and I'm so grateful for that. I just feel like I needed the balance, because while I was staying in Joburg, I was also away from my daughter. And any parent knows that, like, as much as you need to hustle and work, when you're away from your child, there's a part of you that's not whole.
That's missing.
You know? Yes, because that child is part of you, you know? So I feel like, yes, for those 7 years, I put my career first and I gained what I needed to gain. But in order for me to be a whole human being, I needed to be with my child again. So I'm very grateful to now operate from a space that is more grounded, more balanced, more whole. Yeah.
Lex, you've said so much already of where you've been, who you've become and stuff like that. I'd like to know, and people like to know, what motivates you, or what drives you, what wakes you up in the morning? Because there's times where you wake up, you look at the weather, you
And
must
you
have
be like,
been in the party
hey.
the night before, or there's something you were expecting, never kick in yet. Now, what is it that makes you wake up in the morning, kick the blanket off the bed, or off you?
Well, for now, I'd say it's a blend of two things. Since becoming a mom, I have got this sense of urgency that I didn't have before becoming a mother, because there's a human being that you're watching grow as you growing, you know? So I feel like my first, not audience, but the first person who's watching me is my daughter, you know? So I feel like I have to leave her with a legacy of just self-actualizing. I have to leave her with a legacy of fulfilling her purpose, because that's the mission I'm on. In addition to that, you know, being a mom and the presence and the existence of my daughter inspiring me, it's just like, ever since I've been a child, there are visions and ideas and concepts and songs and lyrics and stories. There are these things that come to me. And at first, growing up as a child, it was my medicine, you know, in my own room, in my own space. But the moments I started sharing whether it's the poetry or the music or the ideas from about matric or standard 8 matric, I realized that these things come not only to fix and to heal me, but they also come to be shared. So there's this nagging, there's this haunting, a positive haunting of the ideas and the work that I feel compelled to do that keeps me going. It's very important. I often say that people who get bored, they have a luxury shame. I don't know how you can get bored in the country we're in when there's so much work to be done. There's so much work to be done. You know, we're not at the place where Norway is and Sweden and London. We're not there. We're not there.
Far from there.
And we're moving backwards as we are thinking that we're going forward, you know.
And you'll be surprised to see that those who are bored, those who stand around the street corners and doing nothing, they don't go that far compared to those who are hardly seen on the streets, who are busy grinding, doing so many things at once, you know.
Exactly.
And whatever you do takes you there.
Yes.
If you don't do anything, you will remain where you are. Some people are just fear, they have the fear of the unknown. But some people like yourself and many others, they're not so sure what's going to happen tomorrow, so they're just pushing through anyway.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I mean, as we were saying, there's so much work to be done. We mustn't think, Wuti, countries that are seen as first world countries are there because they just got there. No, they were also farms. They were also, you know, they were also where we are now. But it took a collective movement of people to say, this is our country, it's in our hands. Like when I was talking to this Nigerian filmmaker, this lady one day in this online shandis, I said to her, I was like, how come Nigerians are so hardworking? Is it like a culture? Is it that is it that your government is on a top level? You know? And she said to me, her words were, the government did not do enough for us. And so we realized we had to do it for ourselves. And I was like, damn, that's what we need as South Africans to wake up. Because we can't live being dependent on government. We can't live and pinpoint problems and issues with governments every day. It's very immature as an adult to place the outcome of your circumstance and your life on somebody or something outside yourself. It's very immature. You know? And I know it's a harsh reality. But like, when you see Labo Mama selling iguinya on the side of the street or fruits, those women are doing it. Those men on the street corners fixing shoes, as much as you can laugh at them, they actually being independent. You know?
They're not waiting for anyone to do it for them.
Exactly. And I feel we need more of that in our country. And as much as we can judge our president, one thing I can say he's been amazing at is, or as much as we can fault our governments, one thing that they have done recently that is amazing is they've opened that PESP program. You know, the presidential economic stimulus program. And in the past, where creative industries were kind of sidelined and ignored, this program actually gives a lot of funding to creatives, whether it's music, film. It's very new. It's very new. And I mean, for all the years that I've applied for funding, I only got my first funding last year. That was from, that was not from PES, but it was from Concerts SA and SAMRO, right? And the point is, you have to go through at least 10 no's before you get a yes. Maybe even 20, maybe 50 no's until your yes comes. But the thing is not to give up. Because each time you apply, you learn something. You know?
There are procedures in place.
One thing that people often do is they look at the success the person has earned, but they don't want to go through the steps he went through. So each and every person that's successful and everybody's looking up to, if you were to sit with that person and they tell you how many times they failed, you would say, I would never want to keep up with this.
Like that lady who wrote Harry Potter.
Yes, Rowling, something's Rowling.
Yeah, she said she was living in her car with her daughter. At some point, she didn't even have a house. And look at her success today. You know, so
the comic guy as well, Stan Marvel.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
The old man.
The old man, the one that just passed.
Yeah. Even Steve Jobs, he started a company, he got fired from it by a person that he employed to come
That
and
must
work
have
with
been
him.
painful.
But then that too was more of a reset because he had to start Pixel, which in the later stage, iPhone, they wanted something that Pixel had, so they brought him back.
Yeah.
So sometimes when things are not going well for you,
Yeah.
it's a matter of saying now, we're preparing you for something else.
Definitely.
Don't give up. Go for it. Some point
Definitely.
you'll be telling us now, say, well, hey, I failed here, but this is how I managed to get it. You too, if nothing's happening for you
Definitely.
now, you will
I
get it.
feel
soon.
like for most of us, I can't say all because I don't know. I feel like for most of us, there has to be a breaking point.
Yeah.
You know, like there's that picture I've seen in church of what they call the alabaster box, you know, and it breaks and then comes the perfume, you know, or the diamond that must go through the roughing up, you know, like, because when you're broken, like, obviously most of us have been broken. When you're broken, you realize that all the false things, all the you know, the illusions, all the egotistical things, all the, oh, what would people say? At that point of brokenness, it means nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
You know, and
It means
and
nothing.
and the breaking points are so necessary because sometimes it's the first time when people see themselves is at the breaking point. You know,
see who's with them.
yeah.
Are you alone or are you still with this crowd? Some
Yeah.
people have to fall off at that time so that you can walk your path alone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And it's crazy because a lot of us come from homes where we put other people first before ourselves, you know? And we have to learn that self has to be well first to give. You have to fill your cup first.
First, yes.
And-
so that you can feel other people.
And I'm learning that because, like, I come from a very loving family as well, you know, and it's easy to get lost in helping or being there for other people, and you can be breaking on the inside. So, yeah, self-work, making sure your own cup is full, taking care of your own mental health, your own well-being, it's very important.
Hey, Nani, I'm going to 350. You're not alone. You are not alone. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Lex, you spoke so much about responsibility and how your brothers and actually everybody that's surrounding you looked up to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure, and as well, and you are talking about the difficulties now emotionally because we're coming from a very difficult time. The COVID-19, and then we break from the COVID-19. It's now
Floods
we're trying to
after
make
that.
it.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to push.
Yeah.
So I'm sure. How is it? How are you coping? You know, how are you coping? How are you managing the daily stress of every day?
I'm
You got
much
things
better
planned and
now.
all of a sudden they can't go through.
I'm much better now. I feel like I've gone through the worst. Touch wood. Yeah, the last 3 years have been a roller coaster. I mean, I came back from Joburg. I was broken. I was in like this whack toxic relationship. It was super bad. Like narcissist vibes, bad. I had to get out of that, and being at home, it really helped me, actually. Being surrounded by love, you know, and just having my mom to also check with me. She's like, this one, are you sure this one? Look at him, he doesn't even smile. Okay, you know. You know, so I mean, there was that, and then I'll never forget on the day the looting was super bad. That was also the day I was meant to interview, I think it was my first or my second show that I was doing on Durban Youth Radio. And I was fighting with the producer. I wanted to go in the studio at Durban Youth Radio. I used to have the show. Yeah, I used to have the show called The Wealth and Wellness Show. And I was meant to interview Gogo Lunga Mutwa, who's the granddaughter of Nkulu Credo Mutwa. I love her. She's one of my very good friends. And I was fighting to go in the studio, and my producer was like, "You can die. It'll be on us. Do not go. The streets are empty, Lex. Do not go." So
This was a scary moment, huh?
it was super scary.
Very scary.
It
Because
was
you see
very
everywhere,
scary.
smoke, yeah, everywhere, thinking, what's going to happen next?
Everything we saw on TV,
Yeah.
on television and movies was played
Yeah.
in front of us.
It was crazy. I'll never forget during lockdown, I think it must have been level 1 or level 2, you could only get food and see your family or something like that. I walked from because I love walking, I didn't really feel it. And I usually run the same route, but I walked from South Beach to my grandparents in Riverside, and the cops would just look at me, and I was like, I'm going to see my child. If they stop me, it is what it is, you know? But coming out of lockdown, looting, then in 2021, I co-founded Maleningi Records, which was an amazing, amazing experience for me. It was the first time that I managed to bag an independent funder, an independent investor, a private investor. That was amazing. And I learned from there that the same way there are red flags in relationships, there are also red flags in investors, but of course I wouldn't have known that had I not gone through the experience. We had many, many wins. We're working with Teabag, with DJ Wobbly, we had Celestial Mikes, Kindi, Alpha, Dando, a whole lot of amazing artists, and for me that was really, it was a dream come true. To project manage and co-found and be an artist in the record label that I put a lot of my heart and my energy into. Unfortunately, it fell apart about 8 months later, but it was one of those things. My heart broke. My heart is still sore about it in a way, but it is what it is.
It has to be.
This is another baby.
Yes.
I suppose.
Exactly.
When you started from scratch,
Yes.
you're all excited about it. You saw
Yes.
what you could do. While it was still calling, it
Yeah.
couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking.
Yeah, so there was that. But through it all, I've been very blessed. Even through lockdown, I was very blessed to still be working remotely with an NPO in Joburg that I was working with. And then I was doing a human rights podcast. I don't know.
It's just been a very blessed season for you sometimes, because people were complaining. There were so many lows than the wins.
Yeah.
There were so many losers and wins. I guess in life that's how it should be, the balance of it, right?
But then, as you're saying, whenever there's a loss, somebody gains.
Yeah.
But they don't show much of a gain. You always look at the loss. I could be losing business. You could be gaining some of the clients I had of the business I was involved in. You know what I'm saying? So it just works. They highlight some of the things and not everything. Yeah. Like, from the time you started into music now, how many people you started off with? And how many are here with you or here or still at the bottom? And what may have caused that gap?
That's a tough one.
Because I'm sure in life you do get that you start off with some people,
Yeah.
but if something is on you or you have this thing, you will get pulled out and the rest will remain behind. Or you follow up slowly to the people that you started off with, because now something pulled them up, Just depends on where you are. In your story, where are you?
Yeah,
What happened to those people?
there are those in my inner circle that have gone further than I have, like Moonchild, Mbusiswa. There are those in my circle that have been left behind.
I heard that you also were involved with Casper and Okeman Kuket at once.
Yes.
We were all in the Red Bull base camp in 2013 together. There were 30 of us from around the country. Shane Cooper, Okamanum Coolcat, Youngster, Shimza, there were Moonchild.
As well.
Who?
Black Coffee was there.
Yeah, he was one of the guest lecturers. The late Brahu Masekela was one of the guest lecturers. Christos was one of the guests. They were just legends, you know, like teaching us their life lessons. That was amazing. Shout out to Red Bull. They're really dope and they're for the culture. Yeah, there are those that have stayed behind, you know, there are those that have passed away, there are those that have succumbed to depression and suicide, there are those that have realized their calling is something else, there are those that I realized were not really for me when maybe you thought they were, you know. I don't know.
Those who fucked up.
Yeah. You say it's an unfriend, unfollow.
You will get that.
Effed up. Man, we're having fun in this.
And anyway.
Are we? Yes. It's too much fun, man. Even I'm missing the words. I'm skipping other words. How are you, Lexi?
I'm good.
You're still enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the being giving back and being humanitarian. Where's that part, the element coming from? Because it's such a very down and chilled and the character that you are basically in the rap game.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel like I get that from my elders. I feel like I get that from my grandfather. Who's a pastor and community leader. On my dad's side, my late gran from the Eastern Cape, Granny Baby, and then of course, as I mentioned, my grandfather, Colin Lafoy. I think it's just in my blood. I think it's the type of people we are, the way we've been raised. I think it's a genetic disposition. Yeah.
Must be lucky.
I'm very blessed to have grown up in a home with such good values and to know what being loved feels like. I mean, we're all humans. Yes, my parents have also, you know, made their mistakes and things like that, but the values that I've grown up with, it's only when you go out there in the world and you realize, damn, not everyone was raised on such great values and not everyone came from such a loving home, you know. It was only the more I was exposed to other people and finding out their backgrounds that I realized I'm so blessed. Yeah, I mean, I also on the notes of, you know, humanitarian work, I registered my NPC called Peace 4. We held our first event last year, October, Peace for Sydenham. That's amazing. It was a free concert in the park. And I look forward to hosting more of those Peace 4 events that are just like aimed towards creating better senses of unity and peace and social cohesion in communities that are affected by gang violence and drug-related crime. Yeah.
I was going to ask about the social part, the social justice part, because in terms of I was looking on your humanitarian part, and now you're mentioning the gangs and everything, cohesion and basic education. So I'm like, God, she's got it.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
From home as well.
yeah, I come from a family where helping other people and improving society is part of the work we as a family have been committed to, you know. So it's definitely something from home. Yeah. And they say where you have the ability to do something, you have the responsibility to do it, you know.
Shout out to
So.
Oko.
Yeah.
You're saying your grandfather, one of them is from Eastern Cape.
My late gran, yeah.
Where in Eastern Cape?
Granny Baby Bizana.
The Pondo then, huh?
Yes.
Well, like me, not far from my mother's side though.
My father's mother, yeah.
Are you from there as well?
No, I'm from here, my mother's from there.
Oh.
See, this now takes me to how you met up with that other Pondo Ifani. Because you from Durban. You know, and all of a sudden now you singing with this person,
The picture came about.
It's such a lovely story.
Yeah.
How I met Ifani. Oh man. I mean, we're still in touch to this day. I was in Joburg. It was just before he was signed to Sony. I think it was 2011. And I had gone to OST, which is this concept store and event space that Osmic, who runs Back to the City and the SA Hiphop Awards, used to own back in the day. They're in Newtown. And we were at an event, and Ifani was performing Ewe. You know that hit? And I'd never seen something like that, because I've always been a performer who loves high energy, you know. So like Ricky Rick, bless his soul, what an amazing performer, you know. So I admire artists who can bring all their energy to the stage. And
Ifani brings it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brings it. That guy, you can see even if how he dresses, it's pretty much unique.
You see, with me, with him, I wasn't so much in him, but how he sang was like different.
Yes.
It made you want to listen or laugh about it.
Yes.
Look at his glasses, how big are
Yes.
they? Who was big glasses?
Yes. So it was around 2011, I think, or 2010, could have been 2011. And he was performing, I just went there, you know, to check out the gig. He was performing Ewe, and they made him perform it 3 times in a row. That was my first time seeing that in my whole life. I had never seen that before. Because people love a performance so much that they make you repeat the song. I hadn't seen that before. You know, like nowadays, he had that effect. I mean, like if you see Jay-Z and Kanye, they make them perform Mercy a couple of times, you know, that type of energy. And I was just so taken by his energy, and I'm like, what? This is amazing. So after the gig, I spoke to him. I'm like, yo, I love your work, blah, blah, blah. Exchange contacts. Then we were chatting, and I was gonna be in the Airway video, but then I had to go back home because my daughter's dad and I were also having our own issues at the time. We'd broken up, so I was trying to figure out where I am in this world, you know. So I came back home, and then Ifani and I just stayed in contact. And then after my degree, because I was studying my first year, second year, I gave birth to my daughter. I was working in between then I went back to do my third year. Then I went to Joburg. And when I went back to Joburg, I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, I'm back in Joburg. Let's work. And I started working on what is now called the Lexicon 2.0 project. Back then, we were calling it the Heretic Project with Sa&Inter, who's a producer. And it was a crazy time because we were signed to an independent label. San and I, we were working in the studio almost 24 hours a day. And at that time, I was also talking to Ifani and seeing how we're going to collaborate. And then Johnny Joburg, who's Lutando Sitole, came in the picture, who's Sipho Sitole's son. And he and I were talking about how we're going to work. And then, there was this moments where Johnny Joburg had asked to do my publishing, and I presented this thought to Ifani. Ifani got mad, and he was like, so you want to work with Johnny Joburg? And I was like, in my mind, I thought everyone could work together with Sindawonyela, you know? You do publishing, you are record with, and not understanding the dynamics of also male ego in a workspace, you know. So then I chose to be published and work with Johnny Joburg. Met a whole lot of amazing people through that path. DJ Duap, Frank Marksy, Fran at Post Office Productions, Neil T, like a whole lot of amazing people. And then for like a year or two, Ifani and I were fighting. He was fighting with me. He didn't want to hear me. He didn't want to talk to me. I was like, how? But you know? And then when we eventually made peace, he told me he was working on the second quadrant. or was it the first one? The second quadrant. And that second phase of our friendship and collaboration was what gave birth to Flex and Sushi Dip. And the funny thing is I had an original version of Flex and he loved it so much. He's like, let's rework it, put me on, and you re-release it. I was like, okay, sharp. I mean, I was already performing a different original version of Flex for like a year. And he was like, okay, let's do a new one. Cool. So yeah, in that space, we also, so I was signed with Disguise, which was a subsidiary of Sony, his label at the time. And we were on tour. It was myself, Sakile, also known as Black Sugar, Elroy, Naledi Baltina, and Ifani. So all working together, we'd go on tour together. That was amazing. And then I went on tour to Europe, I think in 2014.
Where were in Europe?
Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. That was amazing. We did like 15 shows in 5 weeks. That was life-changing. I loved it.
The people you had as an audience there, is it South African people or the people from there as well? Like
people from there.
Is it?
And they loved me more. That was the shock.
So they know the music.
Now they do, but they didn't know it before.
Okay.
But I learned that, damn, I don't know what it is here, but the people there like loved me from the get-go. Here it's like the audience still feel I must convince them, some of them. I'm like, oh guys, what the hell? What the hell?
Another question I wanted to ask is, you now, as a colored girl, coming into hip-hop in South Africa, how easy or how hard is it?
It's definitely more difficult because of people's own racist and racial agendas. You know, there's these stereotypes. And of course, apartheid did a brilliant job at making black and colored people think they're two different things. Like, who...
And that still stays, huh?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Because, like, as long as you think you are different or you are other from the other, you're not going to treat them the same.
No.
So we definitely, as colored or mixed race people, we definitely feel the effects of racism in this country, you know. And it's just one of those things you have to live with. But when I was on tour in Europe, it was a beautiful experience to have unbiased people experience my music and love it. I was like, oh, God, they only have a problem at home. You know? They know. So, yeah, it's been quite a journey. And then coming back to Ifani, we also recorded a remix of Punk Tuition, this other song of mine, and he's featured on the new project, the Lexicon 2.0 project, which is basically reworked and unreleased music from 10 years ago from the contractual issues that I mentioned. And yeah, we chat now and again. I was just clarifying some royalty splits with him the other day. But he's good. It was really good working with him. He's brilliant. I mean, aside from the music, I think he was a software engineer. So he's very smart.
There's a lot of other things as well.
He's very smart.
That's
and,
good. That's good.
And you can tell because humor comes from a place of intelligence. You know, so he's very smart. A lot of people saw the clowning persona and maybe thought, you know, that's it. But there's so much more to him.
So he took liberty of his time to venture into other things as well, or expose himself, like read more people close to him.
Development, family.
Yeah.
I was even talking about him going to China as well. You know, and I was like, this guy, who is this one now?
The sushi dip. I saw a video of it. I saw some Kenny Punene something there on the What Kenny had to say with it if you did see that video?
I don't know if he saw it, but I just know we had a really dope time shooting that video. We shot in Saxonwald in Joburg. It was like from the evening till the next morning. It was an all-night shoot. He and I at the time were having a fight. So behind the scenes, it was so funny. It was hilarious because at that point in our lives, it was just before we went our separate ways. I mean, we're all good now, but you know, sometimes when you're growing in different ways, it can rub each other up the wrong way. We were going through that, and I'll never forget because on sets we're like homies. On some get off sets is like I'm not even talking to you. So you know, I was going through my own things then, but. Even the sushi dip scene with me on the table and the sushi, that was amazing. I will never forget that. Like the lady who was the art director, it was winter in Joburg. Can I just say that? It was freezing cold. It was freezing cold. And she just sent all the men off set. And she put the sushi, the leaves, everything. Then she called everybody back on set.
So it's cold, then you have sushi.
It was freezing cold, and I had freezing cold sushi on me. And it was just, I guess the rush,
crazy.
the adrenaline of shooting in that moment just switches your mind to a whole different place. So that was amazing. And he didn't tell me, by the way, that we were going to shoot that scene until like an hour before. He was like, oh, by the way. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. You know, I mean, but yeah, working with him has been really, really dope, and I can't wait for people to hear the Lexicon music. It's my favorite.
She's one of the projects that it's coming up.
Yes, it's my favorite.
Looking forward to that.
Who did you work with?
Thank you.
On that project.
So as I mentioned, it's
You
old
mentioned some
music.
names as well there.
It's old music that's about to be released properly. Moonchild is on there.
Is it?
Bongani Fasi is on there.
Oh.
You've been silent for some time now.
In fact, how Bongani Fasi even got on the song was just
Because I haven't heard or seen any video, please. Yeah.
Because
in years now.
I was recording a song called Lumo Green in Frank Moxie's studio, and Frank Moxie knows Bongani. So what happened is Bongani Fasi came to the studio when I wasn't there, and he liked the song so much he jumped on it. And then I get to studio again, and Frank Moxie is like, oh yeah, Lex, Bongani Fasi jumped on your song. I was like, what do you mean? You know? So he loved the song so much that he jumped on it. So I've had to chat to him to just say, okay, I'm gonna release the song. So yeah, Bongani Fasi is on the album, Moonchild is on the album, another guy, Sanele Shibe, who's now more in film, Zandra, a girl from Durban, San Thurman, who's the co-producer with me on the album. Who else? I hope I haven't left anyone out. But
And a lot of other acts as well, right?
I see gonna be more people added on.
well,
It's not yet complete, is it?
it's 95% done. Because it's a matter of reworking, mixing and mastering. We're using a lot of the original vocal files. I was listening to it yesterday and I realized I don't want to re-record too many vocals because the energy of the feeling is so raw from 10 years ago. I don't want to change too many vocals. Yeah, I just want to clean it up.
That's what's up.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else? What else? I think we've covered everything now.
One thing I'd like to know in your music, you personally now, what message do you want to put out there for people? Because at the end of the day, people listen to music because there's something that you communicate or relate with them.
Yeah.
So who's your target market? I know it's obviously the whole world, but then who do you really want to touch?
Yeah.
What influence do you want to plant in their lives
Yeah.
to change or do good and stuff like that there?
And as well, let me plug your question with mine as well, so that you can just bring it in. So and also to align with Cyril's question, what people can look out for,
Expect
in the coming future, you know,
Cool.
because now you are telling us that you are busy with projects, and there's something that she mentioned as well, the movie situation, which she doesn't want to mention further.
It's another story of another day.
I'm
Just give
still
it,
building that.
You can leave that one hanging.
Yeah, when I pop with that, I'm gonna pop like right at the top.
Must
but
cut
for
the
now,
first
I'm
there.
still. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like in my 18-year career and journey in music, I feel like I've come full circle. I feel like the message was solid in the beginning and it's solid now. I definitely got lost along the way. There was definitely a moment where I was like Frank Ocean lost. um, because it's always been about being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's always been about putting God first.
Yeah.
It's always been about family. It's always been about loyalty. It's always been about freedom of expression. Those have always been my messages. And humor, like not to take life too seriously. I think for me, as a psychology graduate, if you've ever seen the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right up at the top of the triangle is self-actualization. And for me, that's what I stand for. That's what I want people who listen to my music to be about. If they can take anything from it, is that along this journey in life, we just need to self-actualize. We have to use all our gifts. We have to tick off every single vision, or as much as we can, every idea as much as we can. We have to release work, because it's only when we release that more comes. It's about living by faith. Every single release, every single project that I've put out, I've put in faith. Like the Peace for Sydenham event, I rounded up people, an entire team on zero budget, and we managed to cover over 75,000 Rand worth of cost at the end of the day. Every single project of mine, I have said I'm going to release in faith, and God provides the means for it to be released. So yeah, my message is about faith. It's about self-actualization. It's about self-love. It's about community. It's about growth and being true to yourself.
The Makaza situation with open mic, guys. I was looking. I don't know if maybe you saw it, because she's supposedly has to drop an EP right now, and I'm like questioning myself, isn't it this? If maybe it's true, I don't know, because I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know if it open mic. Is it something that we should do now, or maybe people do it now quite often, like to go in public and go about. I don't know, he's complaining or something, because for me I had this thought, which possibly maybe it might be something because she's about to promote the EP.
Oh.
I don't know though.
Maybe she's pulling a stunt.
Yeah, because they did send her the statement, because she was supposed to renew her contract. The contract was for 3 years, I don't know. So she was supposed to renew her contract. And then they send her the contract, like in demand, like, for instance, like you're supposed to sign this, for this agreement to carry on. Yeah. Not asking if she willing to,
to come she agree to the terms that are on the contract. Like.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, this is messed up. If we still have things like this in the industry. How are we going to go about? I mean, our kids, how are they going to go about? And the future generation that is going to come before us, Maybe you have an experience with that as well, Lexi. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know if it's just hype or factual, because we don't know her. But from what I read there, she also said she hadn't gotten paid from, certain sales and things like that. I mean, if you look at Makatsi and you look at, was it Fifi Cooper? That was also messed up through contracts. I mean, I went through that 10 years ago. So it's a good and a bad thing. It was a bad thing at the time, where I got messed over in a contract with an independent music label. And I had to leave all my music behind for that album, and I cried. I lost my mind. I would go daily to Samro I'll never forget Lynette. This lady Lynette, her and I became so close during that time. She felt like an auntie, our auntie Lynette. Because like I'd go there daily and just cry and be like, it's for music, you know, and they tried to help me. They tried to help me, but some 10 years later, I'm really grateful that the music's released, and I'm working on the Lexicon 2.0 project, which is reworking the music that I couldn't release 10 years ago, you know. But it's terrible that the things that happen, especially not only to women artists in the industry, but it seems like us women are more vulnerable in that space, you know. Yeah, it's just one of those things. We come from a template of capitalism that is very cold and very dog eat dog, you know. So people will take advantage of your ignorance, you know. But yeah, thankfully I learned that lesson 10 years ago. So one of the lessons that I learned through that is to equip myself, educate myself, learn, not just be quick to sign anything, you know, things like that. And so although the pace of my success is a little slower compared to like some of my peers, I have peace knowing I have creative control and greater ownership over a lot of my assets, my creative assets. And artists, you know, we need a balance between the creative skills and the business skills. And if you don't have or do not want to learn the business skills, at least have someone that can represent you who does have those skills that you trust, you know.
That makes it very, very important.
Yeah, because it's not a new thing for artists to get bent over.
Yeah, since the days of
music.
Ever.
Since everyone, even the sport people.
Yes.
I think anything that involves people.
Yeah. In anything, you must have somebody who's knowledgeable of the topic there that you want to get into, you know. Because some people can spot a talent. That you are good at singing, you're good at sports or whatever, but you don't know the business side of it. So they say they will hand it for you. Meanwhile, they want to bend you over on it, you know. I once watched a documentary or video clip, Chameleon. He said he was once told by Nelly that he needs to do audits on his music.
Oh, yeah.
And when he done an audit, he found out that his company was owing him or stole from him $600,000. So he went back to them and told him, this is what I picked up after I've done my audit. I want this money back. They refused. Said, if you don't give me this money back, I'm going to tell all the other artists that are under your recording company. They gave him his money back. So now after seeing all of this, he started going into other businesses because he can see that the music thing, as much as we all play music all our lives, but for an artist it's like a short-lived span, I think, a time frame. So it won't last forever.
You're famous now.
There will come somebody after you. So what do you do after that? I noticed with you said you got a degree in psychology, something like that. Why that there yet you have a heart for music? You have a heart for entertainment.
Yeah, so I've also had an interest in psychology and philosophy. And when I finished matric, my mom, you know, she was like, what do you want to study? And then I said, well, I want to do psychology and philosophy, and I also like visual arts. And because I never ever believed, I never believed in studying something you're gifted for, because I feel it would taint it. But I'm not against those that do it.
That is something that you are.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, when I was in high school, I'd always hang around with my friends in the drama classes, and the teacher would say, why don't you just do drama, because you're here all the time. I said, miss, I don't need to study drama. You know? Yeah, I mean, I have nothing against it. I respect those who can study music professionally and tell me this notes, that notes. Good for you. Yes. I mean, I enjoyed learning hip-hop through the streets. I enjoyed, and I still enjoy, learning business on set. I learned everything or most of the things that I know through the music and entertainment industry through experience. You know, and I've enjoyed it so much because there's parts about learning and education that you cannot learn in a textbook. You know, I'm definitely a big reader also. Don't let that fool you. Like, I love reading, I love learning.
Because one might be fooled as well. You know, I'm the practical person as well. I'm interacting, but hey.
They say with the school or traditional education, it conditions your mind to see things in another way. Whereas if you're going out and you're learning things and falling and getting up and failing and making it up again, you are gaining more experience because you are doing it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Especially the type of education system we have. You know, I mean, the very basis of the public education system was designed internationally, like in the 1600s when it was the Industrial Revolution. You know, so we've got an education system that is aimed to create workers.
Yes, not
you
thinkers.
know, exactly. It's only when you get to university level that they encourage you to think your own thoughts and just back it up. You know, and I wish to God we could have reasoning or philosophy classes from primary school because that teaches you the art of reasoning. You know, because now, if you meet up with someone who hasn't engaged on reasoning at a tertiary level, if you put across a different points than them, they think you're fighting. You know, you know,
you're challenging them.
But it's super important. I mean, despite and in addition to what you're learning at school, it's very important to also self-educate. Nowadays we have YouTube. You know,
it's everything in one. Everything in one.
People learn more now out of school than they did in school. Because now you know what you want. So you will go and look for what you want and spend more time reading and studying about that thing. Associate yourself with the people who are good at doing that. I once heard somebody saying, if you want to go to Joburg, you can't ask somebody who's never been there. So you need to ask somebody who's doing well at what you want to do or who you want to become. Go to that person. Even if you won't get paid for it. But you know what you are earning, because once somebody sits in your mind, nobody can take it away from you. You know, so our system is built in such a way that we must depend on the government to provide for us.
For sure.
Think of it now. How many people have degrees and everything else, yet they are unemployed? Because they were told if you are studying, you will get the job at this company and earn so much. Yet there are people who didn't even make it through high school who are doing way further than that. You know. So it just shows that sometimes you need to look at life and compare to what your school is teaching you.
There's a lot of practical knowledge and information that is needed. Like when I was working at the startup last year as heading the marketing, I had to interview someone who would handle the PR, you know, and I interviewed about 3-4 PR graduates. And it was really disheartening to find Wutsi, they knew very little about the practical PR world. You know, it was just theory, you know.
What they were
They managed to pass it.
Yes. So I chose to study psych and philosophy because I was interested in it. And I wanted to learn about that. I always wanted to get into visuals one day, and thankfully I slowly and surely am getting into more visual storytelling. I love that. I have a say in most of my music video treatments. I do some graphic work on the side. I enjoy visual work. But yeah, in terms of the path, learning, growing, it's really the person, it's how you see yourself. You have to see yourself as your greatest asset in life. You have to see yourself as a vessel that needs to be filled. You know, I was talking to some young people the other day, and I was telling them that you have to see yourself as valuable. You're walking into a space knowing you are valuable. You can't have this slave and master mentality, especially in the workplace. You know, you can't think Uti like I must do everything for this person, because the truth is the company needs you as much as you need them.
Yes.
You know, but you have to walk in a space and know your value. So you have to build yourself, whether you're an artist or whatever you do, you have to build yourself to have that sense of self and that sense of value.
That's the most greatest thing that I've ever had, you know, this week mostly. And Lexi, you know, and you have unpacked and packed everything that maybe one could just now start writing a book for you. Lexi, we had so much questions to ask you, and I'm sure you had as well, because the audience which is tuning in right now actually would like to have an interaction with you. So thank you from us.
Thank you for your time.
Cool.
If people were to contact you, hire you for gigs,
man, we can't leave that. Yeah, we can't leave that part because
how do they reach you now?
Yeah, we can't leave that part.
Well, they can find me on social media.
Okay.
Lex Lafoy, everywhere. My email address is lexlafoypr for public relations. lexlafoypr@gmail.com. And and please, I love excellence and I love order and I love structure. Don't invite me to your gig if it's messed up and disorderly. Please, 10 o'clock is 10 o'clock. Please.
Or you will charge.
Don't invite me. If you guys, seriously, I love excellence.
Because time is currency, so if they delay you because they're unorganized, how can you keep up for the next one after that?
And this is our gift we're talking about. Can we respect the gift? Please. So
don't F up that part, eh? That's what's up.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lexi. Thank you for finally meeting up with you. Thank you for this being a success.
Hey.